Right, 2011 break-even point question. Right, the information that's given to us is that we have a forecast of 40,000, selling price of 20 euros per unit, fixed cost of 300,000 and variable cost of 10 euros. In this question, it's asked us to plot the information on the graph. We will do that, but in advance of it, let's just show how each of the break-even point, the profit of forecast, and the margin of safety can be calculated. So break-even point, right? The break-even point is the number of units that the business has to sell, so that it's not making a profit, it's not making a loss. Right, the formula for the break-even point, okay, so the break-even point is fixed costs, which is given to us, over contribution. Right, contribution is not given to us, but we know contribution is equal to selling price minus the variable costs. Right, so selling price is 20 minus variable cost of 10. So therefore, our contribution is going to be 10. Right, so fixed costs up here is 300,000 over the contribution of 10 means that the break-even point is 30,000 units. Right, so we must sell 30,000 units. So at that point, we are not making a profit, but we're also not making a loss. Okay, so that's the first figure that we're going to take. Secondly is profit at forecast. So if we sell 40,000 units, what is the profit going to be? All right, so if we sell 40,000, our sales in terms of value is going to be 40,000 multiplied by 20, which is the selling price. Right, so our sales is going to be 800,000. In order to find the profit, we must take away our costs from that. Okay, so we have fixed costs and variable costs. Right, so the fixed cost is given to us. We know that the fixed cost is 300,000. The variable cost is 10 euros per unit. So 40,000 multiplied by 10 is 400,000. Right, so our total cost is going to be fixed costs plus the variable costs. So 300,000 plus 400,000 is 700,000. Take that away, and our profit is going to be 100,000. Part 3 is the margin of safety. Right, if we sell 40,000, how many items can we afford not to sell before we hit the break-even point, which is this 30,000 up here? So 40,000 minus 30,000 equals 10,000. Right, so there are the three important figures. Break-even point of 30,000, profit of forecast of 100,000, and margin of safety is 10,000. Right, so what we want to do now is we want to show this on a graph. Right, so just give me 1 second. Okay. Right, so first thing we want to do is label up our graph. Okay, so this is down here, it's units. Right, this is sales in terms of revenue. Okay, so we have 100, 200, 300, 400, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, across the bottom it's units. Right, so if this is in thousands, right, so this is 10,000, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So step one on plotting our graph is to put in our fixed costs. Okay, so the fixed costs stay the same all the time. So we see the fixed costs in this case is 300,000. So that's our fixed costs. Right, our break-even point. Right, our break-even point is 30,000 units. Right, so I didn't do it earlier on. So if we sell 30,000 units, the value of that is going to be 600,000. Okay, so go to our graph, and at 30,000 units, and the break-even point in terms of sales revenue is 600,000. So we plot the break-even point on the graph. Right. Next is our variable costs. Our variable costs, or our total cost line, goes on top of fixed costs. So starting at 300,000 and going through the break-even point is going to be our total cost line. Okay, so that's total costs. And sales. All right, sales also goes through the break-even point, but sales start at 0. Right, so when the business starts, if they sold no units, they're going to have no revenue. So our sales goes directly through that point. Okay, so we call that sales, or we call that revenue. Right. Okay, so that's the way our graph looks at the moment. All right, so at the beginning we said our break-even point was 30,000 units. We have that indicated on the graph here. Okay, so we can just plot that across. Okay, so we call that the break-even point. All right, next thing we want to do on the graph is to show what is our profit at forecast sales. So when we sell 40,000 units, right, we want to draw a line straight up through the total cost line and through the sales revenue line. Okay, so it's actually a bit crooked. Let's try that again. Right, so forget about that first line. Right, so where does it break the total cost line and where does it break the sales revenue line? Okay, so the total cost line, it breaks it at a point that indicates 700,000, and on sales, point where it indicates 800,000. So this point here, right, on the sales line, okay, on the sales line, it tells us that the value of those sales is going to be 800,000. On the cost line, the value of the cost is 700,000. Okay, so our total cost is 700,000. Therefore, the profit is 100,000. Right, so here to here is profit, and that matches this 100,000 that we calculated at the very beginning. Right, final thing that we have to do is the margin of safety. Right, so if we sell 40,000 how many items can we afford not to sell before we hit our break-even point? So 10,000 is the answer, and we've already calculated that earlier on. Okay, any questions on it, just drop me a note and I will send a question out today for one to complete yourselves.